Welcome into Sports of Steel. Ferg here with you, getting you ready for week number 7 of the college football season. Hey, it's homecoming week in Columbia, Missouri, as the Missouri Tigers will play host to the Ole Miss Rebels. I think it's the first time for Ole Miss to come to Columbia, so excited to have the Rebels in town and excited for really just another week of college football and another week to see these Missouri Tigers play. All right, before we get started, though, talking about the Tigers and Ole Miss matchup and all that, first I want to get into some injury news and notes that came out of last week. As we all already know, if you've been following along with this Missouri football team, you saw the low, vicious hit that was on Kelly Bryant late in the second half in the game against Troy. Luckily, though, as we all waited very patiently Saturday night and even into Sunday night to try and hopefully get an update, that update did come. And fortunately, it was good news. It was just a MCL sprain, so it was not an ACL tear. There was no tear or anything like that. So MCL sprain. Since it is apparent that he's going to play this week, and he's practiced all week, that kind of lets you know that, I mean, there wasn't even a minor tear. There was probably just a stretch of that actual tendon. So hopefully that's what it was. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure, but usually if you're coming back and you're playing on it, especially practicing that week, usually it's just maybe they stretch the tendon a little bit and there's no small tears or anything like that. So that's the good news. But of course, being a Missouri fan, there's always got to be just a hint of some bad news out there somewhere in the universe. And that news also broke on Sunday night as Cale Garrett tore his he tore his pectoral tendon. So he is done for the season. Really just gut-wrenching injury when you think about it. This dude had 2 interceptions, one of them returned for a touchdown, after he had already torn that tendon. I mean, just my hat's off to you, Cale, for playing through that kind of injury, that kind of pain. He got into the locker room, didn't even say anything until they got into the locker room at halftime, realized he had no function of that arm, and that's when he kind of alerted the training staff that, hey, something's not right and something's going on. Just really, when you look at this defense has been playing absolutely outstanding. I mean, you look at passing defense, something we can look at right here. I mean, they're second in the nation right now. And a lot of that has to do with Cale Garrett. I mean, he just gets in the way. I mean, you look at all of his interceptions, they're mostly schemed interceptions where he's starting off at the line of scrimmage, he drops into coverage, and he gets perfectly in that passing window. It makes it difficult on that quarterback. The quarterback's thinking, okay, we're going to see some pressure. The pressure doesn't come. He throws it right over the area of mostly like a slant or a post, and then boom, there's Cale Garrett right there, just sitting there right there in the window, the passing window, and he picks it off and goes for. Heck, it almost seems like every time now in almost every game he's scoring touchdowns. So, huge loss for the Tiger defense. I mean, this guy was the heart and soul of this defense. You hate it for him. It was his senior year. You really wanted him to go out on top. He was having an all SEC type season. So obviously you just really hate it for the guy. And it's just really unfortunate. But you know what? When one guy goes down, it's the next man up kind of attitude and mentality, and that's what they're going to have. So let's hop right into the updated depth chart. I'm just going to give you starters. I'm not going to give you full, depth, but I'll just give you starters. The updated depth chart that we got this week. Still at quarterbacks, Kelly Bryant. Running back, Larry Roundtree III. One of the wide receiver spots, Jalen Knox. They do have Cam Scott, who made some pretty big plays there in that Troy game and had himself a pretty good game. The other wide receiver position is Jonathan Nance, and the slot receiver is Jonathan Johnson. At left tackle, you got Yasir Durant. Left guard, Case Cook. Center, Tristan Colon Castillo. Right guard, Trevor Wallace Sims. And at right tackle, they've got Larry Borum or Hiron White. So something's going on there. I'm thinking it's more of inconsistency from Hiron White because he has had that, or he has not been able to just lock down that right tackle spot so far. Because we've seen even I can't remember what his name. I think it was Thalen Robinson was as a or with him a few weeks ago, and I thought it was more just to motivate Hiron, and maybe this is what Hiron needs to stay motivated and to stay focused. At the tight end position, Albert O, and then kicker obviously Tucker McCann. On the defensive side of the ball, defensive end Chris Turner, defensive tackle Jordan Elliott, the other tackle Kobe Whiteside, and the other defensive end is Jatorian Hansford. Weak side linebacker Nick Bolton, and at middle linebacker taking over Kale's spot. This is what a lot of people want to know who it was going to be. It's Cameron Wilkins, and you can read more about Cameron Wilkins. Peter Ball, the Athletic, did a great article on him. So go to theathletic.com, read Peter's article about Cameron Wilkins. And how excited he is to kind of have this opportunity, even though he is bummed for his teammate, obviously, but excited for the opportunity at hand. On one of your cornerback positions, it's going to be Jarvis Ware. On the other side, it's going to be DeMarcus Acey. And your free safety is Joshua Bledsoe, strong safety Tyree Gillespie. And the other safety slash linebacker position, they've got Khalil Oliver or Ronell Perkins. Punter, Tucker McCann. Kick returner, Tyler Beatty. Punt returner, Jonathan Johnson. The reason why it's Jonathan Johnson is Rashad Floyd hurt his hamstring. I believe he is out for this game. It's not believed to be serious or anything like that, but just kind of tweaked his hamstring, and he is not going to be playing. I don't believe so, at least this week. All right, so that's kind of your injury news and notes. Quick look at the depth chart. Now let's get into this Ole Miss game. The Ole Miss Rebels are going to visit Faurot Field. I think it's the first time since Missouri's joined the SEC conference that Ole Miss will get to kind of come in. Their fans check out Columbia, Missouri. So, for those that are going to the game, are going to be in downtown Columbia. Show these fans, a great time. I've heard nothing but good things about Ole Miss and how they treated our fans when we visited them. So, return the favor, return the respect, show them a good time in Columbia, Missouri. But Ole Miss, again, visiting Mizzou. The kickoff for that game is 7 Eastern, 6 Central, and you can find it on the TV at ESPN2. Going to be beautiful weather at kickoff. I mean, 57 degrees. So bundle up just a little bit. I know temperatures kind of, last week or 2 weeks ago, it was still in the 90s, and then now all of a sudden you're talking 50s. So it's going to be quite a shock, obviously, to the body. So, dress warm. Make sure you're ready to go. Have a great time. Tailgate hard, and be safe. But getting more into this game with Ole Miss Mizzou. Sorry, I gotta constantly take drinks of water. I'm dealing with a cold right now, so some dry mouth is happening ever so rapidly each time. So getting into kind of some of the stats in the game and looking at these two teams. Ole Miss currently right now their record's 3-3. Missouri is 4-1. You look at the scoring offense for Missouri. Right now they're sitting 18th in the country, which really isn't too bad. I mean, when you really look at it, putting up 39 points a game. Some of that has to obviously do with the defense, but overall, when you look at it, I thought for sure this offense would take maybe a bigger step back from Drew Lock in scoring ability. But so far, not so bad. You look at the scoring offense for the Ole Miss Rebels, they're 82nd in the country. They're only averaging 27.2 points per game. You look at the scoring defense for the Missouri Tigers, they're 10th in the country. They're averaging 13.6 points almost per game as far as giving up. And then Ole Miss, they're at 61st in the country, giving up 25.7 points per game. Total offense for Missouri, they're 32nd in the country. Ole Miss is at 46th in the country. Ole Miss still is Ole Miss. They're still putting up some yardage. They are still putting up some points, maybe not quite as many as they had thought they would put up. They struggled here at the first few games of the season, but lately they kind of started to pick it up a little bit. And I've got some of their schedule right here. We'll get into that here in a second. As you can hear, my voice is just cracking over and over again. Oh, it's almost like puberty all over again, except it's just a regular, fall time cold. Rushing offense for Missouri, they are 44th in the country, averaging 192.8 yards. I wish they'd, and I figured they'd be a little bit better rushing the football, especially with Kelly Bryant at quarterback. I thought, and with having Larry Roundtree back and Tyler Beatty, this would be a team that, is easily putting up almost 250 yards per game. We haven't quite seen that yet. And, we're getting into conference play. It's going to be probably more difficult to see those kind of yardages come, especially in conference play. You look at Ole Miss, they're 16th in the country in rushing. They're averaging 234.3 yards per game. This is a team that likes to run the ball, and their quarterbacks like to run the ball. We'll get into that a little bit here in a minute. Passing offense, though, you look at Ole Miss, they're 98th in the country. They're only averaging 203 yards per game. You look at Missouri, they're 44th in the country. Again, same as their rushing. They're averaging 264 yards through the air so far this year. You flip that, though, to the defense. And Missouri's rushing defense right now, 12th. They're only giving up 88.8 yards per game. Their passing defense is second. They're only giving up 138, which is absolutely phenomenal. If you would have said going into this year that Missouri's pass defense would be second in the country through 5 games, everybody would have laughed at you. There's no way that you would have thought that was going to be the case. Because, we all saw it last year. They got burnt badly in the secondary. You flip it over for Ole Miss. Ole Miss's rushing defense, they are 20th in the country, so they got a pretty stout rushing defense like Missouri. They're giving up just under 100 yards per game at 99.3. And then you look at their passing defense. No, baby. Their passing defense is looking like Missouri's of last year. 119th in the country. They're giving up 295.7 yards per game. That is obviously where the Tigers need to hit Ole Miss in this ball game on Saturday night. You look at time of possession. Ole Miss doesn't do a great job in this category. They're 94th. They only average having the ball. It's under 25 minutes per game at 24 minutes and 42 seconds. You look at Missouri's time of possession. They're 36th in the country at 31 minutes and 39 seconds is what they average. People don't seem to really equate. Time of possession is huge. And the reason why it's so big is because if the offense has the ball more, one, it wears down the other team's defense, and it saves your defense. Your defense now is not on the field as much. They're getting more rest. They're able to go all out, and that's one of the things I think is really helping this Missouri defense is the fact that the offense is possessing the ball longer. They're not constantly out there. We've seen like 2 years ago when Josh Heupel was here, the effects of an offense like that and how much it really affects the defense when your defense is constantly asked to go out there. Your defense gets a stop, and then they're back on the field and not even a minute later. That's something that's not sustainable, and something that I think that I'm glad Barry Odom with Derek Dooley, they've kind of really cleaned up and play a more complete football game. All right, red zone numbers. This is somewhere Missouri struggled, especially offensively. I think they're 118th in the country, whereas Ole Miss, they're 34th. They're 17 for 19, which is a great red zone number. Really what you want. Third downs, Missouri's 58th in the country. Ole Miss is 86th. So those are kind of your stat line, the stats kind of coming into this game. And we'll look a little more at Ole Miss, that record of 3-3, and kind of break down kind of how they've gotten to 3-3 so far this year. They opened up on the road. That was one of my upset picks of the week when Ole Miss beat them 15-10. And then the very next week, they got their first win of the year, beating Arkansas 31-17. Then they kind of struggled with Southeastern Louisiana. They beat them 40-29. I picked them the very next week to upset the number 23rd Cal Bears, but of course that didn't happen. Cal beat Ole Miss 28-20. And then I think it was 2 weeks ago, I believe is when this is. Ole Miss lost at Alabama, put up a lot of points though. It was 59-31. The question you have to start and kind of asking yourself I mean, because South Carolina put up, I think, 24 points on Alabama. I mean, is Alabama's defense just really? I mean, is it just that far down right now, or has Ole Miss found something? Ole Miss scored 31 in the next week against Vanderbilt to win that game, 31-6. Some of the differences that's kind of happened is after, I think it was later in the Cal game, Matt Corral got hurt. I believe he hurt his ribs. It was either in that Cal game or the Alabama game. And backup freshman quarterback John Plumlee came into the game. And this kid, he doesn't just pass the football, but he can run the football. And that's kind of what's made the difference for Ole Miss so far. Because and you wouldn't think it either. I mean, when you look at him, he just doesn't look like a running quarterback. When you look at him, I mean, and the thing about it is, but he can, and he runs very, very well. I mean, you look at his yards so far through those 3 games. John Plumlee's got 322 yards passing, and then he's got 327 yards rushing. I mean, he's getting it done on the ground, and that's something that's going to be very interesting for Missouri to see how they can bottle up a quarterback that can do both run and pass. We've seen him play a running quarterback before, but not somebody that can kind of do both. And right now, Plumlee's kind of he's able to do both. His running ability is probably a little bit better than his passing, but I mean, heck, he's getting it done really through the air and on the ground so far. All right. So some news and notes going into this game. We kind of already talked about the injury ones, but some other things you need to know is the Missouri has 10 consecutive games that they've scored 31 points or more. That dates back to the 2018 season, and that is the longest streak for Mizzou since a 14-game span from 06 to 07. So, again, Missouri's constantly been scoring 31 points per game. It seems to be something they're doing more on a regular basis, which is why it's leading to more wins. Missouri has won 6 consecutive home games. That dates back to last year's 33-28 win over Vanderbilt. They've also outscored in the last 5 home games. They are outscoring their opponents 202-31, which is absolutely incredible when you look at it. You look at Missouri's record over the last 25 games; they are 18-7. That dates back to the midway point of the 2017 season. That record's 4th best amongst SEC schools over the last 25 games. Only Alabama, Georgia, and LSU have a better record in their last 25 games than Missouri. Pretty incredible when you think about that. I know that stat's been around for the past few weeks here now, but something that really is incredible when you look at Barry Odom and his coaching staff and what they've been able to do. The defense, they've had 5 defensive scores so far this season. That's the most in the nation, and it matches the school record for defensive touchdowns in a single season. The 2005 and 2008 teams also had 5 defensive touchdowns. So hey, when you look at that, I mean, they've tied really the school record already for defensive touchdowns in a season. That's incredible. I mean, we're only, like I said, we're 5 games in. We still have half a season left. I figure they'll get at least a few more. Now, Kel Garrett has been a big reason why they've had. I think he scored 3 or 4 of those. But look out for Nick Bolton. I think this kid's going to step up and really surprise some people, and have just an excellent second season. Mizzou has scored 4 in 4 consecutive games with a defensive touchdown. That marks the first time the Tigers have done so since the 2007 Cotton Bowl in the first 3 games of the 2008 season. And then 79-7. That is the scoring margin for the Tigers in the first quarter of this season against their opponents. They're outscoring their opponents 79-7 in the first quarter. Absolutely, just an I can't even. Oh my gosh, can't even think. I don't know. I'm struggling with the words, probably because of my cold, but just impeccable. That's the word I really wanted. When you look at going to win some ball games, You outscore them that much in the first quarter, you're going to win more ball games than you lose. So great job for the Tigers to really take it to teams there in the first quarter. All right, that's it again for this week. It's homecoming week 2019. It's expected to be a big crowd out there. It's again Ole Miss visiting our Tigers. Kickoff is 7 Eastern, 6 Central. If you're not able to make it, you can find the game on ESPN2. Should be a great night. 57 degrees. So wear your hoodies. Wear gold. It's Gold Rush. So make sure you're wearing gold. Don't be wearing no black to Gold Rush. All right. Don't be that guy. All right. I'm not able to go to the game, and I'm still going to wear gold at home just because. Because I'm not going to be that guy that, it's Gold Rush, and I'm going to be sitting there wearing my black. All right, let's transition into the 3 games to watch this week. First game up is not really one of my favorites, but it's up there as far as rivalries go. Number 6 Oklahoma taking on number 11 Texas. In the Red River rivalry. Kickoff for that game is 12 Eastern, 11 Central. You can find it on TV on your local Fox channel. Game being played at the Cotton Bowl like it always is during the Texas State Fair. Just honestly, I mean, when you look at national title, college football playoff implications, Texas can't lose any more games if they're going to even be considered. And then Oklahoma obviously doesn't want to lose this game to Texas because then you're going to start getting into those one-loss teams, later in the year. And we've seen a one-loss team not make the playoff. So just because the reason why I think it's worse for teams like Oklahoma and Texas is there's just not as many opportunities within your conference to get bigger conference wins. You look at some of the other wins that some of these other teams in the SEC could pull off. If Georgia were somehow to lose to Auburn, and have that one loss, well, they've beaten Florida, who will likely be a top 15 team potentially when they play. They'll have beat if they get to the SEC championship game. Talking about Georgia, and they were to beat Alabama. There's just so many more ways for these SEC teams to get better wins. And they may have a loss that's very similar, but Oklahoma, when you look at their wins, you're going to start to say, well, if Oklahoma loses this game to Texas, their only win against a top 25 team would come against Texas in the Big 12 championship game. So that's where I think a lot of people, they talk about SEC bias and things like that. It's not so much SEC bias. I think Pac-12, I think ACC, and certainly believe the Big 12, there's just not as many of those top 25 teams. So it's harder to get getting credit for good wins. It's great that you won all your games, but who did you beat? And that's some of the things that are really starting to look at now. All right, second game up, going to watch this week. Number 10, Penn State, going on the road to take on number 17, Iowa. Kickoff for that game is slated for 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. You can find that on TV on ABC. All these games that I'm mentioning are all Saturday night games. None of them are the Friday night games. So they're all the Saturday night games. And then the last game of the week, number 7, Florida Gators, going on the road to Death Valley to take on number 5, LSU. Kickoff for that game is 8 Eastern, 7 Central, and you can find that on ESPN. And this is what I'm talking about when you're looking at the SEC. Let's say Florida goes to LSU and they lose. Well, Florida is going to have opportunities to get wins. They're playing Georgia. So they're going to have an opportunity still for a top 5 victory, and they've already beaten Auburn, who I believe was ranked number 5 at the time. May have been a little bit outside the top 5. I can't remember exactly what it was. But Florida's already got a top 10 win this year over Auburn. Now you're going to have an opportunity against Georgia. Now you would have an opportunity against Alabama or LSU again, or whoever comes out of that West. I mean, you're looking at 3 potential wins over teams that were ranked in the top 10 at the time when you played them. So, I mean, that's what I talk about when you look at those games like Oklahoma and Texas, and I think the Big Ten has opportunities too. The Big Ten is very similar to the SEC when it comes to having opportunities to beat top 20 teams. There's just more of them in your conference. There's more better teams. The Big 12 is just struggling with, I'm not going to say a talent issue. It's not a talent issue, but just struggling to have some really good teams that are up in the top 20 right now. That's what they're struggling with right now. All right, that was my 3 games of the week. Now it's time for my favorite time. It's the upset pick of the week. My upset pick of the week is going to happen on Friday night, which is tonight. When I'm recording this right now, it's Friday. It's 5:37 Eastern. This game's coming on in a few hours. And my upset pick of the week this week is going to be the Miami Hurricanes. They're at home. I like some Hurricanes at home. They're taking on number 20, Virginia. Kickoff for that game is 8 Eastern, 7 Central. You can find it on ESPN. If you're like me, though, I'm not watching that game, baby. I'm watching, obviously, the Cardinals-Nationals NLCS game. But if you're not into baseball and you're strictly into college football, a good game, I think, to watch tonight is going to be that Miami-Virginia game. I think Miami gets it done at home over Virginia. Stamp it, mark it, whatever you want to do. But that's my upset pick of the week. All right, that's it for week number 7 here on Sports of Steel. Don't forget to go to the Facebook page. The Facebook page is actually called STL Fan Zone. You can go there. You can see I go live every once in a while. I'm actually going live to talk about the Cardinals before every single game. It may even go live after the games. We'll just see about that. But also, so go to STL Fan Zone on Facebook. You can follow along. You can like me on Twitter. It's just at Sports of Steel. And then also the YouTube channel, it is Sports of Steel. Go into the filter by channel. You'll see Sports of Steel in gray and black with the microphone over the O. And that's how you know that you found the right Sports of Steel. All right, hope you all have a great weekend, and I will talk to you guys all next week.